The Survivor Specialist, Phil, John, and McKenna are back. And today we have another defining episode for you. We're talking about Chrissy's defining episode from Survivor 35. That is The Past Will Eat You Alive. Episode number 5 of this season, we see Chrissy go to tribal council on a 5-person tribe and be one of the targets and ultimately survive. And this is the episode that really gets the ball rolling on her relationship with JP, her relationship with Ryan, that ultimately leads her all the way to the final 3 of this season. So, what do we think? This is an early episode to be doing for a player.
It is. There aren't that many preseason episodes that we've done, and I honestly don't think we have highlighted the weaknesses of a player as much as we do with Chrissy in this episode. And I think it's a really weird thing to say because I think Chrissy is thought of incredibly highly in the Survivor community. She's obviously holds the record for individual immunity wins for women's in the tie with those other women as well with 4. She is the first person to have to make a decision about Final Four fire making. There's a lot of arguments. Chrissy's defining episode is the finale of this season where she ultimately goes on and loses. And I know there's a lot of talk. Phil, I know you've mentioned on other previous podcasts that Chrissy probably loses that final tribal council no matter who she's sitting with. But this episode, I think, really highlights why that might be the case. I think this is an episode that highlights Chrissy prior to winning a bunch of challenges more being a detriment in a challenge, not really fitting in socially with a tribe, yet still fitting in socially enough for people to put their neck out for her. And I think that's where Chrissy's real strength comes from, is she might not have the best relationships with everyone, but those she does have the best relationship with are so strong. They are willing to fight tooth and nail to keep her in the game.
And everyone knows me on the Rewind. I love the challenge aspect of Survivor, and there's not many of these people that I would want to talk about the challenge aspect of Survivor about, but Chrissy, I just did a rewatch of HHH, and Chrissy was bad in a lot of the pre-merge challenges and then goes on to tie the record for women. It's just such an enigma to me to be like not great at the pre-merge challenges, but then absolutely crush it in the post-merge for individual challenges. So, I mean, you had talked about her as a challenge asset, but I think she's going to have a lot of troubles in the early stages of the game with challenges if it goes the way of HHH, because her tribes might just be like, we can't afford to keep Chrissy. She's a great ally, but we can't afford to keep Chrissy because we're going to keep losing these challenges. There was the whole issue with you wouldn't step off the platform. You just kept going. Oh, no, I asked people and nobody stepped up. That was a whole big discourse during tribal council. So I just wonder if some of that is going to bleed into 50.
Yeah, she's fighting for her game life in this episode, which is obviously so important to why she's doing what she's doing. But part of me does also say she wants to defend herself so much here that it does come across as like you're just making enemies here. And I think you have to be as strong as you can be when your back's against the wall. But can Chrissy make up for some of the mistakes? John, you already mentioned it, and it's exactly what I was going to talk about, is that she's really tight with some people, but doesn't do enough with others. And I think it's very similar to Aubrey's game in Co-Wrong. She's really, really tight with Ryan. She's really, really tight with JP. She doesn't really do much with everybody else on this season. People like her. It's not that they actively dislike her, but you are seeing her kind of being in this position of not necessarily on the right side of the numbers because of maybe the relationships that she's building. Rourke says it in this episode. She didn't come and talk to me until the day that she needs to talk to me.
But it's a two-way street, Phil.
It is a two-way street, but the thing is, if you make the argument that it's a two-way street on Survivor 50, you're going to lose. Like, you're going to be out of the game. Chrissy, I hope that Chrissy takes the initiative on this season so we don't hear confessionals like that, right? I always think of in Second Chance right before he gets pulled from the game or right before he leaves the game, when Terry does, look at Dietz learning the social game and he does the little like weird like arm thing that he does. I hope Chrissy has one of those moments on this season, because Terry is somebody that I always say, I think if he gets the final 2, he probably wins that season if he's against Aris or Danielle. Everybody says Chrissy would have won, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Terry actually does fall more into the Chrissy scenario of these things of his social game actually wasn't good enough to get the Kasaya votes here at the end. But I hope that Chrissy does learn from what it was that ultimately lost her the game, rather than coming in saying, oh, I played the best game, everybody just got it wrong. Because there's a lot of great in this episode. Her relationship with Ryan, what she does with that. The lie that she tells JP is masterful.
So good.
It is so unbelievably good.
Yeah.
But there's so much bad too. That's what's tough.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The lie and everybody wants to talk.
No, well, because you bring up a good point. So the lie is that there's an all girls alliance forming, but that's really the pitch, the fake pitch she gives to Rourke, and Rourke says, "Oh yeah, sounds great." Rourke is like, "I don't believe Chrissy for a second." Chrissy takes that pitch to JP, being like, "Yeah, Rourke told me all women's alliance, so we should probably get her out, right?" And JP's like, "Hell yeah!" That's the only words we hear him speak in its entire season. But
pretty much
and she twists that to not that she wouldn't have JP on her side, but then she also brings that to Ryan of like, there's a possible all girls thing. Maybe we should get out Rourke. It's not Allie who is your ally. But maybe we could have this common enemy in Rourke. And what is interesting when we are comparing her to like Aubrey, where she has close relationships, Allie and Chrissy aren't gelling. Ryan wants them to gel because they're his number ones. And so when you can't create that kind of cohesive trio, it's kind of a little bit tumultuous, and she alienates Allie a bit from the tribe because she knows she wants to get her out. She knows she wants to get her out, so why make a relationship with her?
And I think that is one of Chrissy's biggest weaknesses. I think when she has a relationship started, if you can get in with Chrissy right away, she's going to ride with you so hard. She is going to work so well with you and take you as far into the game as she can. We see her leverage that in this season, just with the innocuous relationship brought on by Ryan sending her the one-time idol at the beginning, or is it the legacy advantage? Anyways,
no,
was it a one-time idol?
It was an idol good for the first tribal council.
There you go. And she leverages that relationship, right? It's like Ryan is the one who's like, "Hey, I gave this to you," and she's like, "Cool, let's just build this. Let's build it up." She's obviously starts the game with JP and works on that too, and builds that up the entire time. But she has problems making relationships with new people in the game. What's interesting about Chrissy coming back for a returning season, she knows a lot of these people already. Chrissy is very active in the Survivor community. She spends a lot of time at these fan events. So she's met a lot of these, especially a lot of the new era players.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who she finds as threats, because she found Rourke as one of the biggest threats and didn't make a relationship with her. Is Camilla going to be one of her biggest threats? Or, like you said, she's making relationships with these new era people. Does she come into the game with a relationship and is like, okay, great, I can foster this even more through the game?
I think that's going to be the biggest difference in Chrissy's game if she makes the adjustments necessary, because I kind of like when we were talking about Aubrey, I kind of forgot everything about Chrissy's game, because I when you're podcasting the episodes, I actually think I retain less information when I podcast, because then I spew things out and then I kind of forget the episode. Whereas like back in the day when I used to just watch the episodes, it would be, oh, then you talk to whoever about it, then you talk to whoever about it, whatever. Pretty much for me, I'm okay. It's out of sight, out of mind. I haven't rewatched this season in a while. And the older seasons now, some of them I've watched 4 or 5 times. This season I've watched twice, and it was once when it was airing and once right after it aired. Like I haven't watched it in a while. I kind of forgot what her game was, and I know it's very controversial that Ben beat her, all that. It is the way that Chrissy is with the people who aren't with her. And if she makes those changes on this season, she's a threat to win this game without a doubt. But she almost looked at it as like, I don't really know what comparison to make. So it's almost like if you're like in politics, like, well, you're not on my side. So like, I'm going to go worry about the people who are on my side and we're never going to see eye to eye anyway. That's kind of how it felt, right? She wasn't an across the aisle politician. She was a staunch, whatever side she was on. And I feel like, you think about Ryan, Allie, Chrissy could have been the trio on this season. Very well should have been the trio on this season. But because Chrissy and Allie can never get along, and I'm not just blaming Chrissy on this one, because again, this is the two-way street. Maybe Allie needed to do more as well. But you have Ryan who's saying, ladies, let's work together. And they say, no, we're not doing that. I'm hoping we see adjustments for that, because this is not, look, you get on a 50. This is not a cast who is going to reward you for playing the same game that she played in 35. It's the same reason why Ben had no chance to win by the time he got towards the end of Winners at War, and why he ultimately gives up his spot essentially so Sarah can stay.
Looking at Chrissy's challenge.
He looked like he was going to speak.
I know, but John was thinking. Go ahead.
I was. That was your chance. You could have jumped in there, but now I got to speak. Chrissy sits out of this reward challenge, and then we see her do pretty poorly in the immunity challenge. Do we think she's sitting out of the reward challenge because she views herself as more of an asset when it comes to the immunity challenge? Or is she sitting out because she feels like she's one of the weaker two people on the tribe?
I think what was she going to help with in that reward challenge? That's really what my question is.
Who's going to help in that reward challenge anyways?
I think it's dependent upon the challenge. I feel like that specific one might not be to Chrissy's strengths, because it's the snake sliding with no hands, and that's really hard.
And what was the end of that challenge? Because I did fast forward through the challenge once she sat out.
Throw the balls
hoops
up on a hoop.
Yeah. Here's what you're assuming, right? If you're Chrissy, that one doesn't have a puzzle at the end, so the immunity challenge will. So I'm going to sit out of this because I'm going to go do the puzzle for us in the immunity challenge. She was just wrong. There was no puzzle in the immunity challenge. It was the maze. If that was a puzzle, she dominates. We see her do that the entire post-merge. So I think that's actually a smart strategy on her part. The problem for her was the challenges in this early portion of the season actually weren't favored towards her strengths. They were in the post-merge instead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she's coming in with that, oh my gosh, you have the title. You have the tie. Joe almost had the tie. You have a bunch of people who almost have the tie or do have the title. So I feel like people are going to be looking at her as a challenge asset when they might be let down by that. That I feel like her physical game could really impact her more than her social or lack thereof social game, almost even more.
Yeah. So do you think that people are going to be looking at her, though, coming into this season as somebody who's supposed to be a challenge asset for them? She's on with Jonathan. She's on with Coach. I'm with Dee. I'm with Tiffany. I'm with Charlie, who's actually really good at challenges. I'm with Camilla, who's good at puzzles. Are they looking?
She's on the same tribe as those people.
Yeah.
And then I feel like she's going to be looked at as maybe I don't know. Camilla is good at puzzles. If Chrissy's also good at puzzles, we learned in 48, do you need two people that are good at puzzles?
Yeah, you don't.
Not in a new era. I think that I don't know how it's so hard to judge this because I don't know how these survivors are going to view the necessity of challenges. Our assumption is that there are two losing tribes every single challenge. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then challenge asset becomes much more important. Mm-hmm. So it's all just going to depend on performance, I think, in a first challenge. Will probably determine a lot for the boot order for the season. Chrissy's also older now. I think Chrissy kind of benefits from being a little further removed from her season and not coming back immediately here, where I think people will still revere her to a bit, but they won't be holding her up on this pedestal of like what they expect her to be. She's also she survived cancer since she played the game. Did she
I
not?
don't think she had cancer, but she did have a double mastectomy.
I think it was like
preventative.
in her
Okay.
in her genes, and it's like, all
Mm.
right, let's just nip this in the bud right now and like not go through that.
Yeah, I'm just like I don't know after watching this episode, because again, this isn't the everything you need to know about Chrissy. This is like, you know,
That's
defining
already
episode.
out. Go watch.
Yeah, that's already out. Good point. After watching this episode, I really don't know what to expect from Chrissy. I really don't, because I thought what was interesting about this episode is the juxtaposition of her. She's going to tribal council. She's doing all that. And then Ben, who ultimately beats her. This is the episode where we get him with the fire popping, and it's giving him kind of PTSD and all of that, and making him think about the war. And you're seeing how that's a heroic thing for him, right? Like, we're getting that hero's edit. We're getting the tribe kind of coming to his aid and like being supportive of him and stuff. I think the juxtaposition of those two things in this same episode, and this being such an important episode for Chrissy. Chrissy's obviously not going to have that, right? She can't have what Ben has there, but to see how kind of the players rally around her and then see how they rally around Ben. It's two very different ways. And, you know, I haven't watched the post merge of this season in a while, but I would be curious, like, how I forget how people kind of talk about Chrissy. So after watching this episode, again, I just go back to if she picks up the slack with the people who she's not working with, she's a threat. She's a threat. But this episode really is rough for her with the people that she's not working with. And you can blame them. But she's also like, if they're not coming to you, you have to say to yourself, we're on a 5-person tribe. I got to go talk to these two people in some way, right? Like, that's two people not talking to me.
The post merge is pretty much like the new Yawa tribe and everyone else, and Ben kind of swings in the middle of that. And Chrissy is kind of looked at as that leader of the not Yawas, because she has the most relationships. And then Ryan pulls in Devin, who also is attached to Ashley, and JP and Chrissy were on the starting tribe for Ashley. So she is a very big focal point of the post merge and is Ben's adversary.
But a lot of that comes down to like the Ben double agent of it all and her reaction to that situation too, right? Like that's where a lot of the tension comes in. It's leading into the exact point we've been making this entire episode, in which when she is opposed to someone, she doesn't have enough, she doesn't bend enough in order to accommodate working with them moving forward. And that's where I think her greatest strength can lie. Like, if she can figure that out, she's one of the most dangerous players in the game by far.
Yeah. Because, you know, that we're talking about that weakness, but like, how easily she's able to manipulate JP is incredible. We talked about that already. But like, it really is like, there's nobody on this season though that she could probably manipulate as easily. Although there are a couple of those like jockey or guys that maybe don't have the strategic sense, but they've all played the game before. They're not going to be walked over, right? They're also not like Beast Mode Cowboy, who came back his second time after really not playing the first time, and thus made the same mistakes that you would expect that archetype to make the second time. So for me, when I see this, I'm like, there's so much with Ryan and JP. And then like Ryan, she has such a respect for. So the two of them are able to work that out in a way that Ryan goes against his closest ally in the game to now make Chrissy his closest ally in the game.
Who also has JP in her back pocket. Like, he's getting rid of
himself in a worse position.
Yeah. For Chrissy and to not tie it and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this episode is very telling of all of the characteristics of Chrissy, right? It's not to the level
the good,
of
the bad, the ugly, everything in between.
It's not to the level of hide and seek or the martyr approach or something like that, but it definitely tells the story of her, even though we're only seeing her tribe get 1/3 of the screen time, right? Because it's not in the post merge, one of the earlier episodes that we're doing here in this series. So,
but it really does touch on her relationships. It touches on JP, Ryan, and then her lack thereof relationships and how she doesn't handle them well, and then her strategic prowess in telling the lie to JP.
Yeah, it shows how she plays from the bottom. It's just like Tiffany, right? The Chrissy might be more dangerous if she's backed into a corner.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for Chrissy's defining episode. So like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be coming out next with Dee's episode from Survivor 45. This game rips your heart out. That's episode number 11. So we'll be covering our second winner in this series, and then we'll be all done with that. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.